How are you, Africa? Welcome to Pan-Africanism through Poetry with Moses Tofa. Today's poem is titled, Africa. It is time to blame no one else but yourself. Africa, there is a time for everything under the sun. A time to be a borrower and a time to be a lender. A time to be at the foot of the mountain and a time to be at the top of the mountain. A time to be the least and a time to be the best. A time to be a victim and a time to be a victor. A time to be mocked and a time to be praised. A time to be rejected and a time to be embraced. A time to be dejected and a time to rejoice. A time to sleep and a time to awaken. A time to blame imperialism and a time to blame yourself. Africa, it is true that you are still a very young continent. You are not yet 70 years old from colonialism. The wounds of slave trade and colonialism are still fresh on your body. It is too harsh for anyone to expect you to get to the mountaintop within 70 years. Other continents took hundreds of years to get to the mountaintop. But this does not exonerate you, Africa. Because your tragedy is not that you are not at the mountaintop, but that you are going in a tragic direction. A direction that is taking you to the wilderness instead of taking you to the mountaintop. You cannot continue to blame slave trade, colonialism, and imperialism for your failure to go in the right direction. It is true that these triple evils have refused to die. It is true that they have harmed you and that they continue to harm you. Nonetheless, it is now time for you to blame no one else but yourself. Because it is within your power to take the direction that is good for you. Africa, it is time for you to take responsibility, because imperialists bear no responsibility to stop their diabolical activities. It is your responsibility to reject all forms and manifestations of imperialism. It is your responsibility to build a decisive bulwark against imperialism and tell its vile waves that here is where you halt. You cannot go beyond this point. Africa, it is your responsibility to uproot colonial injustices. It is your responsibility to heal your wounded past. It is your responsibility to take the direction that transforms you. It is your responsibility to unite and go towards one direction. It is your responsibility to use your natural resources to take you to the mountaintop. It is your responsibility to build and beautify yourself. It is your responsibility to elect committed, visionary, and authentic leadership. It is your responsibility to revamp your education system and align it with your aspirations. It is your responsibility to uproot the genocidal corruption that has killed millions of Africans. It is your responsibility to stop the perishing of your young people in the Mediterranean Sea. It is your responsibility to stop the repackaged slavery that is afflicting your citizens. It is your responsibility to set your sight on the next generation and not on the next election. It is your responsibility to pursue the politics of ideas and not the politics of the belly. It is your responsibility to tell your story and shape the narrative. It is your responsibility to decolonize your body, mind, and spirit. It is your responsibility to love and value yourself. It is your responsibility to walk away from inferiority complex. It is your responsibility to walk out of the intensive care unit of foreign aid. It is your responsibility to compete with other civilizations as an equal. It is your responsibility to restore your dignity. It is your responsibility to stand up and be counted among the community of nations. Africa, the brutal truth is that you have severe leadership problems. Your leaders are gruesomely unpatriotic. They are amazingly competent at everything that destroys society. They enter into power through fraudulent elections and military coups. They see political office as an opportunity to eat and not to serve. They are corrupt to the uttermost. Corruption is their lifeblood. They violate even the most basic human rights. They commit outrageous atrocities. They capture state institutions. Their inextinguishable desire is to remain in office for a lifetime. Indeed, there is nothing good that comes out of them. Societies rise or fall on account of the quality of their leadership. Societies that rose to greatness did so on account of visionary leadership. And societies that fell into the dungeon did so on account of vile leadership. Africa, while it is true that your leadership is vile, your problem is that you are so eloquent at putting all the blame on your leadership. This is a convenient but misleading narrative. Let this brutal truth be known to you, Africa, that your problem is not only a leadership one, but it is essentially a societal one. Leaders are manufactured by the very society from which they emerge. Each society is a prototype, by commission or omission, of the quality of leadership that emerges out of it. You cannot blame leaders without blaming the society from which they emerged. Corrupt leadership cannot emerge from a clean society. Unaccountable leadership cannot emerge from a society that values accountability. Unprincipled leadership cannot emerge from a principled society. Short-sighted leadership cannot emerge from a long-sighted society. Retrogressive leadership cannot emerge from a progressive society. Leaders who are conduits of imperialism cannot emerge from a society that is anti-imperialism. If it happens that an antithetical leadership emerges from a society, at least it must not survive in that society. Corrupt leadership cannot survive in a clean society. Unaccountable leadership cannot survive in a society that values accountability. And principled leadership cannot survive in a principled society. Short-sighted leadership cannot survive in a long-sighted society. Retrogressive leadership cannot survive in a progressive society. Leaders who are conscious of imperialism cannot survive in a society that is anti-imperialism. Africa, yours is not only a leadership problem, but a societal one. Africa, it is time for you to blame no one else but yourself. Thank you, Africa. This is Moses Tofa, Pan-Africanism through poetry, inspiring Africa, raising consciousness. Amandla.